Hey everyone, and welcome to the first of 3 exhibition games featuring an upgraded single-strike Urshifu VMAX League Battle deck. This first game will be with a pretty straightforward list, basically what you get from putting together 2 of the League Battle decks and maybe tossing in a Trainer's Toolkit. The game plan for this bout is as simple as it gets. You smash things with Urshifu. If you want a bit more nuance, then the idea is to generally smash things with Urshifu V and only drop the VMAX when we need the raw power of Gmax one blow. And honestly, with some luck, this game is going to be over in 2 to 3 attacks. And now with all of that out of the way, let's jump on into game 1. Alright everyone, so we're going to be going into this first match here with a fairly vanilla single strike list, that is just the Urshifus and our Houndooms basically, and we're off to a pretty rough start. After a kind of sus coin flip, we end up having to go second, which is never ideal of course, because it means we're going to be evolving everything up a turn later, and it makes me a little bit more nervous about starting Houndour because, well, I know Houndour is not going to be long for this world, and it might not be worth it to retreat it out, depending on what my opponent leads with. Now, I see a Sobble there, which doesn't tell me much, unfortunately, because everything is playing the Inteleon engine these days. So who knows, if it's Rapid Strike, that's going to ruin my day. If it's Leafeon, then this is probably going to be up. But after my opponent pitches the water energy, I can at least narrow it down, and then, seeing Ice Rider CALYREX V tells me, well, okay, this is going to be some variant of that deck. But oddly enough, my opponent actually whiffs the attachment, for the looks of it, using the only basic energy they had in hand for that Quick Ball. So I have a chance here. Basically, what I'm going to try to do then is take advantage of the fact that my opponent whiffed so badly. I'm going to establish my board as much as humanly possible here, and that's going to be, getting down at least 1 more Houndour than I have here. So, yep, now I have 3 in play, so even if 1 goes down, I have enough to charge up my single strike Urshifu V, and because I haven't whiffed my attachment, I know I'll have access to an impact blow in the next turn. Or if I have to go VMAX, I can probably still get to Gmax one blow and take out an Ice Rider VMAX if necessary. And really everything plays out pretty well thanks to Tower of Darkness and Crobat V. I'm able to get my second Urshifu V ready to go, and my hand is pretty stacked as well. So as long as my opponent doesn't Marnie me or anything crazy like that, I should be in pretty good shape. Now, my opponent, for their part, actually shows the Suicune V, which is going to make things a bit more complicated because Suicune V sets up a lot of really nice 2-shots, and it can make pretty short work of, anything on my board at this point because we've both got full benches, and my opponent will very soon have access to quick shooting as well. And that Big Charm in particular makes things a little bit more difficult for me because now I need 3 single strike energies on my Urshifu V in order to take the KO with Impact Blow, which is not ideal. I do not want to be 2-shotting this thing because I will be 3 prizes behind with very little to show for it. And yep, there they go, a big 220, which means that my Urshifus will not be long for this world. Even if I don't bench anything, all they need is quick shooting, and that will fix the math for them. So, looking at the situation here, I decide that I really probably need to go into the VMAX at this point, and I also really need to get another Houndoom set up ASAP on my next turn, because, well, without the ability to quickly recover and most likely start chaining together Gmax 1 blows, I am going to be in a really rough shape here. So, assessing the situation quickly, I think, alright, well, let me attach the capture energy anyways, I just want to get this out of the way, and then with Houndoom, I can just excise that single strike energy from the deck and hopefully make it a little easier to draw into something good with Marnie. And of course, I can also frustrate my opponent in their gigantic hand there, hopefully depriving them of Inteleon pieces, which is what I really want to get out of the way. And off of my own Marnie, I do manage to grab the Evo Incense, which gives me the critical second Houndoom that I needed this turn in order to power up Gmax one blow. It's not an attack I really want to be using on Suicune V, but Suicune presents just too much of a threat to my board at this point, so I really have to go for it. But thankfully I do have the single strike Scroll of Scorn as well, and with my opponent's small hand size, I know they probably have to prioritize getting a Melanie or some other draw supporter, so they might not use one of their shady dealings to grab a Tool Scrapper or anything like that. And I don't know that a lot of Ice Riders play Tool Jammer either, so I'm not sweating it too much. That said, they have access to that Inteleon, which certainly could give them the 2 trainers they need to clear out my plan B in my single strike Scroll of Scorn, but they actually just grabbed a Melanie and an Air Balloon, which makes me think they're a little worried maybe about something getting gusted up. But either way, they go for the Melanie. They're going to be able to get a gigantic hit into my single strike Urshifu VMAX. And now I'm in a bit of an awkward situation. It's good in the sense that if they go for the full-on Max Lance, I will not be able to accelerate to Urshifu VMAX with all of my Houndooms, because obviously you have to place damage counters on it whenever you use single strike Roar, and basically I'll only be able to do that once. That said, only doing it once means that I'm going to be able to do exactly enough damage with Furious Anger in order to take the KO on my opponent's Ice Rider. Now, the risky thing in that particular situation is that since they now have a second Drizzile and probably a third very soon ready to go, they will have pretty easy access to quick shooting, which will give them essentially 3 prizes on the following turn. Which basically means that, if they have the Gust or some way to power up an attacker pretty easily, then I might be in trouble. But more likely than not, it's going to force me into a situation where I have to sacrifice a Houndoom and then basically come up with single strike Urshifu V in order to clean up. And that Raihan, definitely makes me nervous about what's coming up next turn, because it guarantees them access to that quick shooting Inteleon. But anyway, they go for the big hit here, so yep, I only have room to go for a single strike Roar. So I think, all right, well, let's just get ourselves set up here. I am going to return those energies to the deck. I will go for the one I need here, putting me up to 310 damage, which, obviously with the single strike Scroll of Scorn here is going to be just enough to actually take out the VMAX. And then, of course, I'm going to establish one more Houndoom because, I can't have one going into the next turn. I really need to have at least 2 ready so that I can sacrifice one, and then hopefully with my turn attachment and the 2 single strike Roars, still have enough to get single strike Urshifu V going. And in fact, I do pretty well. I'm going to attach the basic energy here because there's always a chance my stuff gets shuffled back, and I also don't want to get hit with a random fan of waves, which this deck does run occasionally. But anyway, I go for the big KO. I get myself down to 1 prize. My opponent's sitting at 5, which they could very quickly turn into 2. But again, the only thing that I can really bank on here is the fact that if they play Raihan or they play Melanie or anything like that, they won't be able to Gust. So I can basically put up a Houndoom when they do KO my Urshifu VMAX, and then, hopefully come in for the revenge KO the next turn. And if I have to, I am more than willing to pitch my hand in order to dig for that final boss. So it's tricky. I'm going to wait to see what my opponent does, whether they want to continue the game, take the easy KO at least in revenge. And, they're thinking for a really, really long time, but after a little bit, I think they realize that they're, the odds aren't good. My hand is pretty big. They need to Melanie or Raihan here in order to even really get an attack going. So, by that point, they can't mess with my hand, and they probably think I have the boss, leading them to scoop. So, Brute Force turns out to be an appropriate solution to every problem, as long as you apply enough Brute Force. Ice Rider as a deck is quite well versed in the application of Brute Force itself, but it was a dangerous opponent because it also sported the flexibility of the Inteleon engine. Now, this game actually ended up being a lot closer than it might have appeared to be, but thanks to a somewhat risky play with Scroll of Scorn, I just broke my opponent's will to continue. And sure, they could have gotten the return KO with one application of quick shooting, but I'm sure they felt that my hand was big enough to probably hold the game-winning Gust. And the thing about Ice Rider is that you can't Melanie and Marnie or Melanie and Boss in the same turn. Or, in my opponent's case, in the final turn, they're more likely Raihan and then play another supporter. So they probably wagered that I could get that final prize if I really needed to. Still, I think they should have played it out because there's a very good chance that they would have had me there if I didn't grab the boss, let's say, off of the research for the following turn. A lot closer than it needed to be, in all honesty. But anyway, now that you've seen the vanilla single strike deck in action, make sure to check the description below for a link to the next battle. Or click the card, which should pop up right about now. We'll be featuring a minimalist version of the Umbreon VMAX variant of this deck, and I can't call it a budget version because we all know the shadowy dog cat things are just too damn expensive. And before you jump into the next game, make sure to like this video, leave a comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. I will catch you all in the next one, and until then, take it easy.